Hey everybody, Captain Lou here with another edition of Tigers Daily here on the Fan Arch Network. Happy Saturday. Welcome to the weekend. Saturday, June the 27th, 2026. Wow. Why can't it always be this easy for the Tigers? What a way to start the second half of the year. We'll talk about that in a little bit. The Tigers and the Astros, game two of the four-game set. We talked about it yesterday. A turning point, potentially. Crossroads time. Call it whatever you want. I know it's only one game, but the Tigers looked like world beaters last night. 8-0 for the Tigers over the Astros. 8-6-2 for the Tigers, 0-5-1 for the Astros. The carnage started in the third inning as it was James Outman was on third, McConaughey was on first, a swinging strikeout for Dylan Dingler, but taking an attempt on a steal was Kevin McConaughey. The throw went into right center, so on the air, Outman scored. It was 1-0 Tigers, and then the next at-bat, Kerry Carpenter. Boom, deposited one deep to right field, 412 feet. That made it 3-0 Detroit after 3 innings, but then the gates were open, the floodgates that is, in the bottom of the fourth inning. Again, it was Colt Keith with a home run. James Outman, a little bit later on, a 3-run blast to make it 7-0. Still nobody out in the fourth inning. And then McConaughey got on base. Dylan Dingler scored him with an RBI. 8-0 for the Tigers after 4 innings of work. And that was all they needed. That's all they got for that 8-0 shutout win. 6 different players for the Tigers got 6 hits, which is nice to spread the wealth. We talked about it. Normally they need at least a dozen hits to pull off a victory. But the Tigers nonetheless were able to get it. 8-0, and of course we can't talk about that without talking about another superior outing by the Tigers pitching staff. How about Kiter Montero? 4-5 now on the year. He's been the recipient of some hard luck as far as backup for the Tigers, if you will, run support. Another strong outing. 7 innings, shutout ball. 3 strikeouts, 5 hits, spread out over 7 innings, 96 pitches. It's going to be interesting to see if and when Jack Flaherty comes back to the rotation, what they do with Kiter Montero. Are they going to go with a 6-man rotation? We'll talk about that in a little bit. But how about the Tigers again with that pitching? DeJesus came in for the 8th and 9th inning, kept the Astros scoreless. 30th straight game, the Tigers have given up 4 runs or less. That's their starting pitching staff, leading all of Major League Baseball. So the Tigers take game 2. A monster game for the Tigers. Something they had to have as they won by the score of 8-0. All right, we talk about the second half for the Tigers, starting out with this game on Friday night. And it was a big game for the Tigers. They needed this victory so bad to try to get something going if they want any kind of chance in the playoffs. But again, we wonder what really is going to happen for the Tigers. Are they legit contenders? You think, all right, we're 12 games under 500, right? 35-47. They're on pace to win 70 games, maybe. What's got to be different for them to make any kind of noise? Well, first of all, they got to start scoring some runs. That's evident. There's some crazy stats out there that I want to tell you about. We talked about it yesterday. The Tigers were like 4-35 when they give up when they score under 4 runs. Well, when they give up 4 or less runs, they've got 24 losses. When they give them up 4 runs or less, they've got 24 losses. That leads all of Major League Baseball. When they gave up 3 runs or less, they've lost 12 of those games. And they lead Major League Baseball with that. When they give up 2 or less runs, like they did Thursday night in the opener against the Astros, they've lost 5 of those games. That's like 5th in the Major League. These stats are insane. We talked about the one where they're 1-18 in 1-run games at home. I mean, you can't make some of that stuff up. So obviously they've got to improve on that if they want to have any chance in the second half. Now, again, we're going to maybe some of the guys need to come up from the minors. I don't know. Jace Young had his 14th home run or 13th home run tonight for the Toledo Mud Hens. They won 13-1, or they were ahead 13-1. Edward Valencia, his 14th home run for the Mud Hens. Do you think about calling them up? Some power into the lineup. I mean, you look up and down the lineup. We've got, some legit players, obviously. Riley Green, batting around 290. McConaughey, everybody's Rookie of the Year, the All-Star. We should be an All-Star anyways. We'll call him a Rookie of the Year candidate, batting 285. Dylan Dingler with 60 RBIs now. One of the hottest catchers in Major League Baseball, if not the American League. We'll see if any of those guys are on the All-Star team in the All-Star game in the middle of July coming up, not too far away, by the way. So that, we've got the usual suspects. But then you start looking at some of the other guys. Torkelson, when is he going to break out of it? 203. Now we get the torque bombs every so often, but batting the Mendoza line's not helping. Zach McKinstry, batting 177. He's got to pick it up. Again, we could go up and down the lineup, right? Detroit's got 3 or 4 guys every night in that lineup batting right about the Mendoza line. The broken record that it sounds like, we've got to, it's something that we've got to look at, right? And that's got to be one of the things that changes in the second half. The other thing is some of the other teams got to start losing, or Detroit's got to take advantage of these other teams losing. I mean, realistically, going into the second half of the year on Friday night, Detroit was 5 games out of a wild card spot, 8 games out of first place. The White Sox, Detroit had to win to keep pace with the White Sox in first place in the American League Central. So I don't know if that's a realistic expectation. Not every year can a team come back from 15 games down like the Guardians did against the Tigers last year. And so we'll keep an eye on that. So I don't know. We got to, I think, focus if you want any kind of chance at the wild card or at the playoffs. It's got to be the wild card. But I know you look at that lineup going into Friday, there were 4 teams tied for that final wild card spot. And when you're 12 games under 500 and you're thinking you've got a shot at the playoffs, is it realistic? Any other year, I'd say no. But this year's got to be the exception in the American League. A team 3 games under 500 has a playoff spot right now. Isn't that insane? I mean, how many teams? There's like 4 teams tied. Detroit's got to leapfrog like 7. So you figure for the Tigers to have any legit shot at a playoff spot, realistically, they've got to go about 17 games above 500 in these last 81 games. To be safe, they'd have to go 20 games over 500. Does this batting order give you any confidence that could happen? I don't know if it does. I don't know if it does for me, to be honest with you. It's kind of scary if you ask me. But I think that the Tigers, to get to where they want to be, I think they'd have to go 41-20. Or I beg your pardon, 51-31. 51-30. And that would get them to 85 wins. I think if Detroit can get to 85 wins the way this American League is right now, they'll get a playoff spot. And again, I keep saying, you want to look at the glass half full, we'll do that. The Tigers have the opportunity to do it. Look at 2006 with the St. Louis Cardinals beating the Tigers in the World Series. They had 84 wins. 85 wins this year will get you in the American League. So if you want a realistic expectation, Detroit's got to go 51-30. Does this lineup look like a 51 win team in the second half? I don't know, but that's what they're going to have to do. So obviously, the offensive input has got to change for the Tigers in the second half. Do they call on the minor leaguers? Do they call on the guys from Toledo, the Jace Youngs, the Eduardo Valencias, anything like that? Now, the pitching staff I'm not worried about. Obviously, they've been holding this team together. Just think if the Tigers weren't pitching as well as they have been, where they'd be right now. Instead of 12 games under 500, they'd probably be like 20-25. So you got to give it to the Tiger pitching staff. That's going to be the question mark. Is not the pitching staff, it's the batting order. What do they do? Do they call anybody up? Was it fool's gold with McKinstry? And Zach Short obviously is not here. They got rid of him. McKinstry. They're not going to have Wencel Perez, although he was only batting 170. He's going to be on the 60-day DL. He was a good locker room guy. The other key for the Tigers to have any chance in the second half is somehow They've got to get Gleyber Torres back. Boy, he was hot when he came back from his original injury in June. But as you listen to A.J. Hinch earlier in the week, he said that Gleyber Torres is on the slow ramp to recovery. So I don't expect to see Gleyber Torres, in all honesty, until around the end of July. At least the All-Star break, but it could potentially be the end of July. So we'll keep an eye on that. But realistically, any other year, I'd say the Tigers don't have a chance, being 12 games under 500 at the halfway point. But again, when the last wild card spot is being occupied with a team 3 games under 500, you got a chance. All you got to do is get hot. Coming up after the White Sox, they've got 3 games against the Bronx Bombers in New York. After the Astros, they've got 3 games coming up against the Bronx Bombers in New York. Then they've got Texas. Then they got the Athletics. So those are teams that they can get well on in a hurry. But then they finish up with the Phillies, probably the hottest team in Major League Baseball. Donnie Baseball, Don Mattingly, the interim manager of the Phillies, has got them playing so well right now. They're giving a scare into Atlanta. Now, I know we talked about that yesterday on Tigers Daily about maybe Atlanta taking a run at Skubal. They're kind of sweating her right now because the Phillies are playing so well. So these are important games for the Tigers. You know, we talked about the homestand, 7-3. Well, this is the first game last night in the second half of the year. So they're 1-0 in the second half of the year. Now they got to go 50-30 the rest of the way to pretty much make it a little bit easier breathing to get a playoff spot. I know it's a lot to ask. It's been done before. Let's see if the Tigers can do it. All right, now we talk about Jack Flaherty. We've talked about him really for the last couple of weeks. He comes off the DL on Sunday. Here's the question. He's eligible to come off the DL on Sunday. Here's my question to you. Is he auditioning for a potential team, a suitor, for the playoff push? Now, we talked about Troy Melton, Kiter Montero. Both these guys are flying under the radar for the Tigers in the starting rotation. Now, and if Flaherty, we talked about it a little while ago, if Jack Flaherty comes off the DL and starts on Sunday, pushes Casey Mize back to Monday, pushes the rotation back a little bit, which isn't a big deal. A 6-man rotation, they talked about it at the beginning of the year. They got Jackson Jobe, by the way, is going to pitch live batting practice. His target date's the end of July. So that all begs the question, is this audition time for Jack Flaherty for a potential trade bait? One of the teams that I was looking at that needs some pitching help, can really bolster their pitching staff, is the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, what Detroit could, with the pitching staff the way it is, not real concerned about the pitching staff for the Tigers right now. What they could use are some good prospects. Look at Braden Payne for the Milwaukee Brewers. I think he's rated the 15th highest prospect in the Brewers system. He's really skyrocketing right now. He's had a good year. He's in high A ball right now. I know what you're saying. Well, he's not going to be an impact player right away. But let's not fool ourselves. The only person we could get an impact player to come to Detroit or to get traded to Detroit would mean giving up Tarik Skubal. And I don't know if Skubal's going to be going. I don't know if Milwaukee's ready to give that up for a guy like Skubal. But they might be willing to take a chance with Jack Flaherty. Flaherty was pitching real well in his last couple of outings before he got injured. These are big starts for Jack Flaherty. He's got a chance maybe to go to a contender if Detroit's not there at the trade deadline. But I really like a guy like Braden Payne, outfielder for the Milwaukee Brewers. Detroit needs the sticks, right? So I think this guy would be a good pickup for the Tigers at the trade deadline. And the other option that may look good for the Brewers is Flaherty's on an expiring contract. He's in the last year of a $20 million, well, it was 15 mil, but he got 15 starts, so it got bumped to 20 million. It's an expiring contract. That's the point. That's the key right now for this trade opportunity potentially for Flaherty. Not just with the Brewers, but I like what the Brewers have to offer in the middle 50, from 15 to 30 as far as their prospects. A high A prospect like Braden Payne, I think would be a good ask for the Tigers to get from the Milwaukee Brewers. And they might be willing to part with someone like that for a stretch run pitcher, an expiring contract they don't have to worry about next year or when baseball starts back up. We won't talk about that CBA stuff, but just keep an eye on that. I think this could be an audition time for Jack Flaherty, and look for the Brewers to be a suitor for him. I think he'd be a good addition to the Milwaukee Brewers, and it wouldn't cost them a ton. You know, a 15th to 17th rated prospect, and that's where Braden Payne lies in the Milwaukee Brewer system. So, you know, again, something to keep an eye on as we get closer to the trade deadline. But before they even get there, Flaherty's got to come off the DL, which he's scheduled to do on Friday, or on Sunday rather, for an opportunity maybe to, I don't know, try to get the Tigers maybe in a little better shape, and then they'll go into a six-man rotation for now. I just can't see them bumping Kiter Montero to the bullpen. He's pitching too good. I wouldn't put it past A.J. Hinch. That would be an A.J. Hinchian kind of a move. But this is going to be, maybe they want Flaherty to get, well, Flaherty will get some starts. And if he pitches well enough, he could be a prospect for a trade down the line. And again, if he is, watch out for the Brewers. Again, I love Braden Payne. I think he'd be a good addition to the Tigers farm system. All right, this weekend, big weekend for the Tigers. We mentioned it. Now they are at 5-3 on this 10-game homestand. We talked about it. 7-3 is what they had to get on this homestand before they go take on the New York Yankees coming up Monday through Wednesday in the Bronx. They've got Framber Valdez going tomorrow against Tang for the Houston Astros. Both these games are afternoon games. The weather's going to be decent tomorrow and Sunday, or today and Sunday rather. So Framber Valdez goes today against Tang, and then on Sunday, as of right now, Casey Mize is going to take the mound against Hunter Brown. That's going to be a magnificent matchup. Two quality arms for the finale of the four-game set. So something to keep an eye on. But the Tigers, again, in my opinion, they got to win both games. They get to 7-3 on the homestand. Take a little bit of momentum into the Bronx. Well, that would mean they would be on a 3-game winning streak again. That would be a successful. Homestand. That will get them on the right track. Then we can maybe start talking a little more about a potential thought of a playoff run coming in July and August. Maybe they'll, so these next two games are crucial. They can get a couple more 8-0 games. That would be fantastic. But you can't count on that. Let's see the Tigers win a couple of close games for a change at Comerica Park. That would be something to keep an eye on as well. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Tigers Daily here on the FanArc Network. I want to take this moment to thank everybody, however you watched us, on your laptops, your iPhones, your computers, however you watched us around the world here on this edition of Tigers Daily. Until next time, Captain Lou saying keep your heads up, keep your sticks down, keep your feet moving, and as always, keep your minds open. So long.